let's check this out. We'll check this out together. Obviously, yesterday, a big portion of the show and something that blew up on the internet were Anthony Mackie's comments about Captain America and not having America be one of those things that he represents. We went over it yesterday, tried to give a nuanced take about what Mackie could have intended there. It's possible, as I said before, that he was in front of an international audience and he was trying to speak to the room, basically trying to say, it's not just America. You guys can appreciate these things about Captain America as well. And I don't know if he just misspoke or if he just wasn't clear enough. But as I said yesterday, I didn't think the comments were that outrageous. But I also recognize that we live in a world where those comments will be weaponized. And I think, because we saw even before we started the show yesterday, these comments were trending like #1 on Twitter. Massive, massive deal. And all the usual suspect of culture vultures on either side were using this thing as ammunition or saying, he's right and he doesn't need to apologize, right? You can kind of just see how divided people are about these particular things. By the way, just to take a step back, right? Just to take like a little bit of a step back here. It is kind of wild that the first movie from Marvel Studios in 2024 is a Captain America movie about a big red hulked out president. I still don't know if the planning there, considering the political discourse, not only in this country, but around the world, I don't know if that planning was all that good. However, yesterday, and this is the main topic that we're going to start with today. Yesterday, Anthony Mackie clarified his comments on Instagram. Okay, and as you can see here in my tweet about this, I think it's a W response. But let's read his comments. Anthony says, "Let me be clear about this. I'm a proud American, and taking on the shield of a hero like Cap is the honor of a lifetime. I have the utmost respect for those who serve and have served our country. Cap has universal characteristics that people all over the world can relate to." Okay, so I think W comments, and for a number of reasons. I mean, he's not apologizing, he's clarifying. Okay, and that's good because he doesn't have anything to apologize for, in my opinion. Now, a lot of people feel differently about that. We'll get into sort of the reaction to this reaction, but generally, I think these are really good comments. I feel like this is from a PR perspective or like a management perspective. I feel like this is strong. I feel like he's not walking things back. I feel like he's giving clarity. And I also feel like he's going above and beyond to really reach out to specific groups that include servicemen and women and people that have servicemen and women in their family. And I think he's very specifically targeting that group of people and explaining that he has the utmost respect for them, which I think is a huge W. Okay, so I think these comments are a W. I think good on you, Mackie. I think good on anybody at Disney or Marvel that maybe talked to Mackie about this situation. And it's one of those things where it's not like, I'm not sitting up here trying to analyze this through like my lens as like a fan. This is more of like pundit Josh or like business minded Josh, because it really is. And as we're going to talk about with the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man actor, it really just is as simple as you don't want to say things that will divide the audience or alienate certain parts of the potential audience for the thing. And that's just called being responsible. I mean, this movie will have hundreds of names in its credits. People that worked on it, people that have worked on Marvel for like all of their lives. And you represent so much as a star, as a movie star, in a big production like this. Your words carry a certain amount of weight. And I think you just need to understand that we live in a world where, as I said yesterday, we made the example of like the boats being the words and the context and the subtext being the water that gets you there. We live in a world where people will take the boats and put them in whatever order they can or take away all of the context and try to weaponize your comments. So you unfortunately have to be aware of that, in my opinion, when you're out there representing a big 4-quadrant IP thing. If you're not representing a big 4-quadrant IP thing with hundreds of millions of dollars behind it and hundreds of people's livelihoods, depending, in some regard to its success, you can go on and say whatever the hell you want, right? But in this example, I don't think that's true. Now, The thing about this is the reaction to this is predictable. It's unfortunate, but I think it just speaks to validate a lot of the perceptions that I have about what the status is of the current pop culture conversation and the role of actors, you know, the role of pundits, influencers, or whatever, right? So you can basically split this up into two camps. You had a bunch of people out there saying, too late, you're trying to walk this back, you clearly don't like America, and sort of like doubling down on their weaponization of the original comments of Mackie. I'm sure some of you guys saw this stuff as well. Like, let me know in the chat, or, you know, let me know on social if you have seen that sort of stuff. I think it's hard to miss. I saw a ton of that kind of energy from the people maybe on like the sort of far right of the spectrum of political discourse, or rather pop culture discourse, which unfortunately becomes political. So, I mean, what to say about that? I mean, I think the thing is, you just have to be honest, be real, and you have to let the chips fall where they may in that regard. I mean, to me, I think I can just clearly see that that's bad faith. Like, that just feels super bad faith, because the comments themselves were so mild and can be interpreted in so many different ways that I think it's already uncharitable to take those things and weaponize them. By the way, I'm not that guy. I didn't weaponize those comments. I just merely am speaking to the reality of the situation, right? So on the one hand, you know, I thought it was already uncharitable, but I also acknowledge that that's a reality of it. The thing that I think these new comments from Mackie do is they really expose for any actual critical thinkers or people that have an open mind that a lot of the original commentators are bad faith. Because if you don't consider context, if you don't consider new context, which is like Mackie here clarifying the comments, not apologizing for anything, but clarifying the comments, then that's bad faith. That's literally saying like, no, I've established what this is. Nothing you say from here will change that. And the only reason you do that is if you're being bad faith. So I think the comments themselves are actually useful when you see that the reaction happens. And then I think open-minded people can just call it like they see it and say like, okay, well, you're just being bad faith now. And it makes me question how good faith you were originally when making these comments. That's why I think it's good to, I mean, first of all, he should have never made these comments because it creates like a bad PR problem, right? But let's just live in a world where that happened. That's why comments like this are so useful, because the truth tends to cut through a lot of bullshit. Not for everybody. I mean, clearly we live in a world where a lot of people don't want truth, right? But for, I think, a silent majority of people, I think truth does still cut through a lot of the bullshit. And you might not see a lot of these people's opinions being, you know, spread widely on social media, because nuance is not sexy on the internet. It's not sexy to think for yourself and not parrot talking points and yell at the other side, et cetera, right? That's why these people have been elevated, because the algorithms and, you know, social media sort of support that. But for a large amount of people that were just really trying to decide, do I want to see this movie or not? And maybe they're on the fence, and maybe Mackie truly being anti-American or perceiving Mackie to be anti-American would have actually made a difference in their decision to go see the movie. These comments are important. There is a non-vocal majority of folks that I truly believe are common sense, good faith, open-minded people. And those are the people that I think largely decide whether movies do very well, whether shows do very well or not. You will have your sort of fringes on both sides, but I think it really matters to speak to the sort of less vocal majority. I truly believe majority that's very open-minded. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this is the reaction from the other side, because you will also have a lot of people on the left that are saying he never needed to apologize and bringing up all this sort of stuff. And actually some of them taking it as far to say he kowtowed or he bent the knee, or, you know, he's now flipping sides or whatever. Right. And again, just bad faith. Like, I just consider all of that sort of stuff to be really bad faith. And unfortunately, it just kind of shows that when these things happen, there's a very loud reaction from both of these sort of entrenched sides. But I give a lot of respect to Mackie and to the people that handled this situation, because I think they did it the right way. And I truly think that for that large majority of folks, this is good enough. This will allow people to not have this weird perception of Mackie and maybe just let it go and be open to going to see the movie. Now, there's one other aspect to this story that I do want to bring up. And this was sort of, I guess, inspired by some comments from people that were kind of on the left. And it's interesting because I brought this up as well yesterday, but I don't actually remember these comments from 2011, but a lot of people are digging these comments up, okay? So I just want to address this because I find it to be, well, frankly, fucking annoying as hell, okay? So a lot of people dug these comments up from over 10 years ago, right? And Chris Evans in 2011 on what Captain America represents. He said here, "I'm not trying to get too lost in the American side of it. This isn't a flag-waving movie. It is red, white, and blue, but it just so happens that the character was created in America during wartime, when there was common enemy, even though it is Captain America. I've said it before in interviews, it feels more like he should just be called Captain Good." By the way, terrible fucking name. You know, he was created at a time when there was this undeniable evil, and this guy was kind of created to fight that evil. Okay, so a lot of people have brought this comment up, and they've dug it up, and I think the angle a lot of people are taking on this comment is that Mackie is not actually doing anything wrong, and even his original comments were not bad whatsoever, because Chris Evans over 10 years ago said what he said about Captain America. This misses the entire point of why what Mackie said was a mistake, because it's not a mistake to have a nuanced opinion or to feel this way or think these things. The mistake, and by the way, if Chris Evans made these comments this year, I would also say, huge mistake, Chris. Don't do that. Because of what? Context, ladies and gentlemen. This is 14 years ago, okay? 14 years ago. So probably around the time they greenlit Blade or whatever, right? The point is, things are way different now. Things are way different now. And you have to understand that when you come out and make comments within this sort of very galvanized, Gilded Age type of a setting, you just have to be aware that comments like that will be weaponized by people that want to damage this movie. So these comments are fine. Mackie's comments are fine in isolation. The problem is when you are promoting a movie and you live in the world that we live in, you have to be more careful. And this just comes down to media training. It's not the individual's job to necessarily know all of this stuff, but there are people at these companies that get paid very nice salaries to guard the IP, to help the brand not be tarnished and not take shots and damage and mudslinging, etc., etc. As I said yesterday, it is not Mackie's fault at all. It is the company's fault for not giving him the proper media training, for not anticipating the tricky political questions and how answers to those questions could be weaponized. That is the problem. And frankly, shit was just way different 14 years ago. I mean, before 2016 even, I would say the internet, the world, the culture war, all of it, vastly different from what it is now. But we are making movies and promoting movies in the now. So I just wanted to kind of break down all of the different angles. And then ultimately, like, just to go back to it, I think it's a W from Mackie. Like, I think it's a W. I appreciate the comments. It feels in line with a lot of the other ways that he's talked about other issues. I said this yesterday, but Mackie is a thoughtful guy. He's actually a deep thinker. And I think that he has some interesting things to say about these ideas, concepts, and these movies. But again, it just comes back to you have to understand that people are going to try to literally make bad faith arguments and take what you say and weaponize it. And there's somebody at that company whose job is to literally protect them from that. So W Marvel, W Captain America And you know what? I'll add one more crazy thing into this segment because a lot of people asked me yesterday, what are your final predictions for this film? I'm actually going to predict, and I could be way wrong on this, and maybe I'm doing that thing where I'm getting like a little too excited again as we get a little bit closer. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this movie will have legs, great word of mouth. I think it'll make over $800 million, and I think it will be considered a massive success for Marvel. Okay? That's my prediction. I want to leave off on that. There you have it, folks. The response from Anthony Mackie. Of course, let me know what you think about this, either in the comment section if you're watching the clip video or in the live chat when we get into Q&A. Pretty wild stuff, huh?